This episode of the Citadel Cafe is brought to you by listeners like you. Visit patreon.com/the Citadel Cafe to find out how you can become a patron and help make this show possible. This is the Citadel Cafe, episode number 465 for Wednesday, May 10th, 2023. My name is Joel Duggan, and the Citadel Cafe is where my friends and I talk about the geeky stuff that we're into. Joining me this week, Stephen ESC is here, and we're going to be talking about all kinds of Star Wars, so buckle up. You can follow Stephen at Stephen ESC on all the social media that matters, and of course, Stephen ESC on Twitch. Hello, sir.
Hello, sir. How are you?
Doing well. It has been an entire 12 hours since we parted ways.
Exactly.
For folks that don't know, Stephen and I are gym buddies. We work out a few times a week early. Did I say early enough? Early. Today was early. Today was.
Felt it. Oh, I felt it early this morning.
Yeah, it was bright. It was bright and zero dark stupid. Well, that's a lie. Zero dark stupid is a funny way to say it. It's only true in like January, February. Now that it's May, It's actually quite lovely on the way to the gym in the morning.
Although surprisingly chilly for May. It was,
yes.
I think, only 3 or 4 degrees Celsius.
Yeah, was not warm. Was not at all warm. I'm not looking forward to 40 degrees. I'm not even looking forward to 27 degrees, but I am looking forward to 15 and 20 and hiking weather and things like that will be very much welcome, I think, around here.
Agreed.
So we're going to kick things off with kind of a recap of the Star Wars news that's been hitting the internet over the last month, honestly. Star Wars Celebration was on April 7th through 10th of this year, and May the 4th was just a few days ago. And not a lot happened on May the 4th that I saw. There were a few things, but most of the news that was coming our way as Star Wars fans was coming out on the waves from Star Wars Celebration. And I say that because the way that I was keeping track of all of it was through Blind Wave, a YouTube channel I know that I've mentioned here on the show before. And they have a Star Wars focused YouTube channel called Star Wars Wave Squadron. And it's a great way to get caught up with some of the insight from the folks that are steeped in Star Wars. And they actually attended the convention and some of the panels. So where you could watch some of it live and see some of the announcements live. There's also VODs and stuff. I'm sure people have seen them by now on YouTube. But if you want like the Cole's notes, or if you want to hear impressions of like trailers that were shown live to the convention goers, but were not put online for various, timing reasons, or like things weren't ready yet, or you're getting an early look because the director of the show happens to be at the panel, stuff like that. You can get your information from Blind Wave and the Star Wars Wave Squadron. Very, very cool guys. I really quite like Eric a lot. I think Eric is one of the biggest Star Wars nerds in their kind of panel of hosts. He's really articulate, and he is very balanced as a Star Wars fan. So even if something is not for him, he knows it's for someone. And so he doesn't really come down hard on things. He'll be fine saying that I didn't like that, but not saying that it's crap.
Right.
Like he keeps a really balanced opinion. We'll have a couple of articles linked in the show notes as well. I've got an article from dapsmagic.com for the expanded Star Wars timeline that was revealed at Star Wars Celebration. And gamesradar.com had a summary of everything announced at Star Wars Celebration 2023. So the big thing for me, the thing that I thought was really interesting, is very similar to what we've seen happen with Marvel over the last 10 to 12 years. Star Wars is expanding its timeline, but they're doing it in a different way. And I think in a way that suits the IP much better than Marvel. So Marvel was doing these tentpole movies. They were kind of leading into one another, and it was a progressive timeline. It started with Iron Man, and it kind of went through the events until Infinity War and Endgame. And now it's gone beyond that, and they're moving into a different phase, although I find the new phase very confusing. But for Star Wars, what they revealed at Star Wars Celebration was the Star Wars timeline. And I'll read the major points along the way. Dawn of the Jedi, the Old Republic, the High Republic, the Fall of the Jedi, Reign of the Empire, Age of Rebellion, the New Republic, Rise of the First Order, and the New Jedi Order. And it spans, if you want to kind of put your I guess perspective cap on, the dawn of the Jedi is like the dawn of the Force. So like no one knows what it is, no one knows how to use it, who found it, who started it. We're talking 2,000 years ago.
That'll be really cool.
Yeah, timelines like that I think have a lot of potential, because you're not in the Skywalker saga, you're not linked to Skywalkers or Palpatines or anything like that. No Han Solo relatives. Like you're so far removed that while you have the ability to tie things together and pay some fan service, you can still create your own unique story without having to worry about all the pressure of the expectations of existing characters, right? You can tell new stories with new characters, which I think is something that the animated series that Star Wars has done is doing really well. And that actually brings me to my next point, is that not all of these properties or points in the timeline are films. There are Disney Plus series. Some of them are animated. Some of them are live action, as we'll talk about. And then other things are comics. You know, the High Republic right now, I think it's the High Republic. Old Republic, pardon me. The Old Republic is a comic series.
I didn't know that. That's cool.
Yeah. And a lot of the Jedi kind of look like Lone Rangers. Interesting stuff. There's also the new books that are out right now. So previous to Disney buying Star Wars, there was a lot of novels, and that was pared down by, I want to say, what was and wasn't canon. So some things have been removed from canon. Really good example is the Timothy Zahn trilogy, which was removed from canon because of what it did with the Skywalker characters, and they wanted to take them into new stories in the new movies. But sometimes there's such a fandom for these books that pieces of the non-canon books are brought into canon stories. For example, Grand Admiral Thrawn, who appeared in Rebels, the cartoon, is from the Timothy Zahn trilogy. It's from Heir to the Empire. And so by bringing that into Rebels, they made Thrawn canon. Not the stories from Heir to the Empire, but the character is now part of Star Wars, which fans were super excited about.
Yeah, that's a really cool way to do it.
Yeah, I think because they're taking the things that fans, you know, have been attached to, but then they're able to move them forward in new ways. And so I'm sure there's a huge list of things that are and are not canon. I'm not too fussed about it. I just kind of think about non-canon stuff like, well, it's about Star Wars tales and Star Wars. I mean, even our own history is, you know, written by the winners. You know, like there's always a second, you know, side to everything. So maybe some of the canon, the non-canon stuff is just tales, tall tales. You know, it doesn't have to be true. I think that we can still get some good stories out of the older content. The Dawn of the Jedi is actually one of the things that they were focusing on in one of the panels, where there are 3 new films coming to Star Wars. James Mangold is to direct a film set thousands of years in the past, focusing on the first Jedi. So that's going to be like the Dawn of the Jedi kind of era. Dave Filoni, our friend Dave Filoni. Dave, we don't know Dave, but I consider him my friend.
Another gym buddy.
Yeah, another gym buddy. Dave Filoni is directing a film to bring together the Disney Plus streaming series that are currently happening. So that's Mandalorian. We know that he's involved in the Ahsoka series coming up. There's Book of Boba Fett, and I think that's it for Star Wars series currently going. Unless they're looking at Bad Batch as well, but Bad Batch is animated, so I don't know if they're going to make that jump of pulling things like Bad Batch into live action. I would be very curious to see how they would do that.
Yeah, especially since they've got the same actor voicing all of the 5 main characters. So
yeah, so I would be okay if they made some choices there and actually got different actors. I think that would be fun.
Yeah, I'm sure they would.
Yeah, fit the archetype, that kind of thing. So that'll be cool because, of course, that's going to be Dave Filoni's first feature, which is going to be great. There's going to be a new film set 15 years after the rise of Skywalker, so after Episode 9, and that was the big news coming out of Star Wars Celebration. Daisy Ridley is reprising her role as Rey Skywalker, and that will be directed by Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. She's actually a Oscar-winning director. She won for Best Short Documentary this year, I think.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, some interesting chops. Really cool to see a female director at the helm of a Star Wars film with a female lead. I think that's awesome. I really like Rey, the character. I don't know about
Likewise.
you.
Oh, I do. I think Daisy really did a great job of taking that role and basically leading those 3 films. I thought it was really good.
So I'm looking forward to that. I know that people are not super thrilled about the whole her name being Skywalker thing, even though she's related to Palpatine. But I saw a really good sort of explanation of that, in that she's not Palpatine's granddaughter exactly, because of the information that we're getting, and we'll get into this in the Mandalorian discussion, but the information we're getting from television series now and all the cloning that's been going on. And if it was one of Palpatine's clones that is Rey's father, then she's technically not related to him in the same way that we think of a family tree. She would share DNA for sure, but it's not going to be like necessarily a bloodline.
Interesting.
But it was explained why she's so bloody powerful at the same time too, right?
No kidding.
Yeah, so because that what I think is really interesting. So I'm interested to see, in the light of all that's happening that we're getting with the Star Wars series now on television and what's coming up. I'm interested to see how these new films are going to go, especially because they're not all happening post Rise of Skywalker. We've got things kind of littered throughout, which I think is going to be cool. In August, we have the Ahsoka series that we've talked about the trailer, I believe, on this show before.
Oh, it feels so long away still.
We got a teaser trailer. It looks amazing. There's lots of Rebel characters in it. Lars Mikkelsen is reprising his role as Admiral Thrawn. He voiced the character in Rebels. He is now going to be playing the character in real life, in live action. So that's going to be really cool. I'm glad that they went that route. The fans are excited about it. He does look the part as well. Like, he kind of has that Eastern European, very kind of like high cheekbones and very stern. I mean, he's a very happy guy. At the Star Wars Celebration, he was just blown away by the reception from the fans. So he was very smiley and very happy. But in the roles I've seen him in, he can be very stoic. So that's gonna be really cool. My buddy Chad is very excited about that, because Thrawn is one of his favorite villains from Star Wars. So you've seen the teaser trailer for Ahsoka, right?
I have, yes. It's really well done. I find stylistically looks very cool. I think she looks like a badass with the the lightsabers already. So I'm really looking forward to this one.
I'm really excited about all the Rebels characters that you probably are aware of, but I don't know if you are that invested in.
Yeah, it's tough because I see a lot of these characters and I feel like a familiarity about them, but I don't know them that well to get excited that they, which ones specifically are going to be in the show. But even as a standalone series, without knowing what the characters are, I think they did a fantastic job with the trailer to make it look exciting, like you really want to watch it.
I think it's going to do both. Like, I think it's going to bring in new people, and it's going to be rewarding for people that have watched the cartoons and have invested in the animated series. But like, my buddy Chad, he doesn't watch the cartoons. He's just not interested. And at some point, if you've missed a lot of them, like, no one wants to watch 7 seasons of Clone Wars because it's a dated cartoon. And that's
Right.
where Ahsoka gets kind of like her hooks into the fandom. And the first 3 seasons are rough. There's moments. I saw an interview, actually, Blind Wave and a couple of other podcasters were talking about it. And they were asking people, like, when did Ahsoka stop annoying the crap out of you and become the internet darling that she is now? And a lot of people say like season 2 or season 3, because the first 3 seasons were aimed at 10-year-olds, and then they're 13-year-olds. And so they started writing for older kids, and the arcs started happening more. Anakin got closer to Revenge of the Sith timeline stuff. Like, it became a really interesting thing. So for folks that don't know, if you're kind of like on the outside of the Star Wars fandom, Ahsoka is Anakin's Padawan. She eventually left the Jedi Order before passing the trials to become a Jedi and eventually a Jedi Master. So she still uses the Force and considers herself, I shouldn't say that. She doesn't consider herself a Jedi. She certainly acts like one. Truth, justice, do the right thing, all that kind of stuff. But she will very often say, I'm not a Jedi. And because she has problems with the Jedi Order. I think a lot of those problems with the Jedi Order are founded, and maybe some of the reasons why the Jedi Order fell so easily to the Sith when it did. So seeing where this trailer is going to go is very interesting, especially because it looks like that the main antagonist is Thrawn, or at least the plot line is probably the search for Thrawn. Because if you remember, Ahsoka appearing in season 2 of The Mandalorian, she was fighting the magistrate of that town. It was like a very samurai-esque episode,
right?
In her first appearance, and she was questioning the magistrate about Thrawn, and the magistrate actually from that encounter was in the trailer for Ahsoka. So that character is coming back too. And that's really cool. I think it's I can't remember her name, which is terrible, but I think she's played by Bruce Lee's goddaughter or something. And that's why she's so into the fighting and the stunts and stuff, because she's trained in all the martial arts because she was inspired by her godfather. Anyway, really cool story to have so many things like that tied to Star Wars in Hollywood.
It'll be nice to see Thrawn come into the mix of it as well. I mean, I don't know him from previous shows, but just I did a bit of rewatching, as I mentioned to you, of The Mandalorian just before this show, and at the beginning of the second last episode, Moff Gideon is actually talking to the other holograms. I forget
Council
what
of Evil, or basically it's like the Council of Evil. They don't call
Council
themselves that,
guys.
but yeah, it's basically a circle of bad guys.
Yeah, he calls one of them out. He says, "You say Admiral Thrawn's going to come, and yet I hear whispers, but there's nothing actually on the radar of him being around or coming back. So, is he really coming, or are you lying, or do we need new leadership, kind of thing?" So it's interesting that it is, mentioned in Mandalorian as well, and that it's actually going to become a bigger plot point in Ahsoka. So,
because Thrawn was a huge plot point in Rebels, and I won't spoil anything. I will say that Thrawn is a character that's like calm and methodical, and will like use a culture's history and art in order to beat them in war.
Jeez.
Like that kind of a thing. Like, so he gets inside the head of the enemy, realizes what their values are, and either squeezes those values or like dangles the carrot to get them to do what he wants them to do, so that he can then attack them or enslave them or whatever the Empire's mission is in that particular case. And so he's always talking in that way. It's kind of one of those things where, in a lot of times, a villain monologuing like Thrawn would make you roll your eyes in most films and stories, comic books. But because he's so smart, it's not like Goldfinger, it's not like mustache twirling evil monologue. It's more like the explanation of like, I have you now. And it's very good. Like the book was really, the books, I should say, there's more than one. The books were really well done. I liked how they portrayed him in the Rebels, because of course they had to make it for, accessible for all ages and stuff, but it was well done.
And not that I want to steal your thunder, but if anyone else is like me and has not actually seen Ahsoka before the series comes out, Joel mentioned to me this morning that there is a Ahsoka Essential Episodes playlist on Disney Plus that I plan on going to watch, because it feels like we're in a bit of a lull now between, Marvel shows coming out and Star Wars things coming out. So between now and August, that playlist that you recommended looks like it's going to be a good one to kind of get up to speed on, at least who this character is, because she seemed amazingly cool when she showed up in the what was it, with the Book of Boba Fett, was it, or was it Mandalorian?
Both. She was in both. Point? Yeah, she was in both. She was in the Mandalorian season 2, and she was in the Mandalorian episodes in the Book of Boba Fett when he goes to visit goes to visit Skywalker and bring Grogu the little metal armor shirt. The Beskar armor chainmail. She's there with R2D2 and Skywalker and stuff like that.
She comes out looking cool right away, so it's just...
Oh, absolutely.
I'm looking forward to getting her backstory.
Yeah, and Rosario Dawson is a fantastic actor. I really liked her stuff in
Oh my goodness,
Marvel,
yeah.
and I've seen her in all kinds of things before, and so I'm excited for that. I'm excited that we're at a level in Disney Plus, and like I would say animated, because there's so much special effects, but like the Disney series on TV don't feel like television shows. It feels like movie quality effects and storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
Not every episode for some series, there's always space scooters and things like that we can turn our nose at, but
Cough, cough. She-Hulk. Cough, cough.
yeah. But in the way that they handle the Mandalorian, the special effects, the story, the pacing, the cinematography, like it feels more,
Oh my goodness.
like a film than it does an actual TV series. And so I think that that's one of the Disney's strengths with Star Wars, is that they do 8 episodes, they do 10 episodes, they don't push it too much. And I think that, if Ahsoka is like 8 or 10 episodes, again, it's going to be good and it's going to be tight because they don't have a lot of time to waste, which I think is good. The next bullet point on the timeline is The Acolyte, which is a Disney Plus series coming in 2024, said to make nods to how Lucas was inspired by samurai when writing about Jedi, set in the High Republic era, a century before the Phantom Menace. So a full 100 years? 100 years is a century. A full 100 years before the birth of Anakin Skywalker. It's supposed to lead to how the Sith infiltrated the Jedi. So how the Sith got in there. I don't know if it's necessarily going to be about the first Sith, because the thing about the Force that I've come to understand is that it's always in balance. So if there is a dawn of the Force, a dawn of the Jedi, then there should also be a dawn of the Sith roughly at the same time. And so I don't know whether that's going to be told at the same time or whether the Acolyte might look back to that. That could be interesting to kind of get like a series. Yeah. When I think about the Acolyte and what they're trying to do, I think about something like Diablo, where you're just an adventurer and the world's not perfect, but you're out there fighting the world. And as you get deeper into the story, there's more and more of the occult and devil worship and demons and levels of hell, and all these things kind of unfold, and it starts to go back hundreds and thousands of years and all this kind of stuff. I think that could be really, really interesting for something like the Sith, which we really don't know much about, other than just like they're always dressed in black and they're bad. They basically are the bad guys. Like they're the big, it's such a classic thing. Like it's a white starship and Darth Vader walks in the first time we all saw him back in A New Hope. And it's just like this big black figure. It's just scary. That's all we knew at the time. We did see Carrie-Anne Moss wielding the Force apparently in the trailer for The Acolyte, or a clip from The Acolyte. These were not released publicly, but these were things that were talked about and shown at Star Wars Celebration. I like Carrie-Anne Moss a lot.
Me too.
I can see her in Star Wars, and her wielding the Force sounds awesome. Sign me up. Like that just sounds fantastic. Sutamo, I hope I'm pronouncing his name right, is the actor that brought Chewbacca to life in recent Star Wars films. Will also be playing a Wookiee in Acolyte that has Force abilities. So we're going to see...
that's interesting.
Yeah, either a Jedi Wookiee or like a Force-wielding Wookiee, to say the least. So that could be cool. And we've seen them in animation. We've seen some Jedi Wookiees in different series. I think it was the Bad Batch this season. Have you gotten that far? I should have asked before I mentioned it.
No, it's okay. I think I have gotten that far. The Bad Batch is it's one of those shows that I don't know if I hit a point where it just seems like the episodes are just like one-offs and don't really actually move the story forward at all. So there's nothing really drawing me back to this overarching arc. So I'm behind.
So I will say push through. And there are a couple. It did suffer from a mid-season pacing problem, but it picks up and the end is worth it. Like it really amps up the what's the word I'm looking for? The pathos. Like it's edge of your seat stuff. And I think part of the problem is that you can kind of see where they put all of their budget into like the two episode finale. And then they had to have a couple of cheaper filler episodes like earlier in the season to balance it out, which I think is unfortunate because like it's Disney, you print money, like just make the whole series like the last 2 episodes, please.
Or if you're gonna have to like have those shows where there's 2 week episodes in the middle. Just cut the weak ones out and make it a 6 episode season as opposed to an 8 one.
That's the thing about these series, especially the cartoons, is that they're meant for everybody. And so the adults are like champing at the bit for the season finale and the season opener. And then the kids are perfectly happy watching droids or, different, simple stories that are self-contained episodes.
Mm-hmm.
There are points when it doesn't focus on the normal characters and it does get better. I wasn't a big fan of the villain, like the scientist villain. I felt that he was just too soft-spoken for animation. Like for an animated show, he was profoundly unanimated, and I found it really dumb. Like I would rather have someone with a little bit more character to them. There needs to be a little bit more oomph in animated stuff. But yeah, really, I know that I poo-pooed the Bad Batch on this show when it first came out in season 7 of Clone Wars. I am happily eating my hat. It's become a much, much better show with characters that I
love
find
being proven
endearing.
wrong.
Yeah, I don't, when we get into rants on the show about certain things, like I don't want to not like something. Like when I'm this invested in a franchise, like I really want things to go well. Speaking of younger audiences, the Skeleton Crew, I don't have much info on this other than it stars Jude Law, and it's billed as Star Wars answer to the Goonies. So it's aimed at younger crowd, perhaps all ages, like that kind of a thing. So Steven Spielberg's Goonies, I feel like that's a pretty solid, timeless film. I don't know how much of it would stand up in terms of, my 80s, but I feel like there's a certain generation where they would just they would get it. And I feel like having something like that within Star Wars would be good. It's live action. And I've seen an interview with Jude Law, not that he can really say much, but he did share a story of himself nerding out on set and realizing that he's standing next to like actual Jawas. And he's just like, this is the coolest thing ever. Like, nice. You see him getting excited about that. And when you see actors that are that into it, like Pedro Pascal talking about how excited he was to be cast in a Star Wars show, like, I think that just speaks volumes for the level of work that they're going to bring it. Because when the actors want to get it right, then they're not just like reading what's on the page. Like, they want to really make sure that they understand everything about it. And if they're already fans, then they're going to be at least more aware of what's happening and not just what's in the scene, but kind of like the whole mythos.
Yeah. I'm curious to see how this one's going to go. I was trying to see if there had been any video, just people. I realize you can't just take what you saw at this event and show it, but I was hoping that there'd be little snippets of things like that. And there was a couple people who, one in an article and then one in a video, where somebody said that it's got kids in it, but it may not necessarily be so geared at children. I honestly don't know, because they were being super vague about it. So they said it's not necessarily going to be for kids only. So I'm curious to see how it plays out. And I like Jude Law in pretty much everything. So,
and the actors that they have playing the younger kids in it are, I want to say, virtually unknown. I know that the Blind Wave crew are watching the Karate Kid. What's the series on Netflix? It's not called Karate Kid. That's Cobra Kai. Yeah. Apparently one of the kids from, I think it's the Skeleton Crew, is also in Cobra Kai, but not like the lead. He's like one of the side characters, but apparently he's really good. And so the Blind Wave crew were like, man, we're already a fan of this guy. Now that he's in my favorite franchise, like, let's go. So apparently that's what's happening. And I think that it's, again, you might have key cast members like Jude Law, like Carrie-Anne Moss, but if you're bringing in like the younger Jedi crew and they're virtually unknown actors, I think that's fantastic. I didn't know anything about Daisy Ridley before she took on Rey, and that was perfect because I didn't have anything else to pin on Rey. Like, I just knew, Daisy Ridley from that one role. And the same is true, I guess, of Mark Hamill. I've seen him in a few TV things here and there, and he's obviously famous for doing some voice acting. But there's no part in Mark Hamill's performance as older Luke Skywalker that I think of the Joker. So
yeah, exactly.
There's a bit of a separation there. Andor season 2 is coming. I've looked, but I haven't seen a trailer. I think maybe one dropped recently, but I went looking again because I thought I saw it scroll by, and it's so hard these days. I don't know about you, but I find like between YouTube and TikTok, I see all these things that are like they look like trailers, but then after a few scenes, you're like, oh, this is fan made. Because you're like, that's from that movie, and this is from another movie, and the music is a little bit different, and you're just like, okay, but they'll bill it on YouTube like new trailer for Andor season 2, and it's just like there's no little asterisks to say fan made or like fan edit, nothing like that, and so you get duped into it. It's like this isn't what it should be like. So I don't know. I haven't really seen one for sure that I'm aware of.
That's a show I still have to watch as well. I have not had a chance to see season. I know. I knew you were going to do that. You're like at the gym, like, this is a show that even non-Star Wars fans should watch, and they would enjoy it. I said, okay.
Yeah. Well, you're a Star Wars fan.
I am. Yeah, just hours in a day. Unfortunately.
Oh yeah. Look, well, we both know about the whole hours in a day thing. I'm going to be on board for Andor season 2. And as I was sitting here talking about the trailer, I realized that I really didn't watch much more than the first trailer for this first season. And I might try to fly this one blind because Andor is like it's a spy drama. And so not knowing what's coming around the corner, including cool money shots from the trailer, is awesome because then you don't know what to expect at all whenever, they're doing something with high risk, which is basically everything that they do in that show. The characters, I mean. So yeah, it's one of those things that I'm looking forward to quite a bit.
Do you know a date on that one?
Andor season 2? Quickly. No, I don't think they have an announcement. I want to say it may be as late as 2024. The Ahsoka series isn't coming out until August. So it will, if Andor is coming out anytime, it won't be until November or later, as far as I can tell.
IMDb says 2024.
Yeah, okay. I figured as much. A lot of the stuff that they were showing was like 2024 type thing. Gotcha. Or later for the films. The films are like ideas right now. And they set that expectation quite clearly on stage when they said like there are 3 films that we want to make. They're currently like being written, kind of like it was the stage that they're at. Like it's not like they're shooting or casting or anything like that. There's just the only person on board so far that we know of was Daisy Ridley.
Right.
Moving into Star Wars Day 2023, that's May 4th, just a few days ago. Star Wars Visions Season 2 is now on Disney Plus. For folks that are not aware of Season 1, that is an anthology animated series where several different animation studios from around the world tell a short story based in the Star Wars universe, and it is all over the map. It could be a cool black and white samurai film. It could be a goofy musical cartoon. It could be somewhere in between. And there is even some stop motion in season 2. Looks like the same creators that did Wallace and Gromit have an animated bit in there too. Nice. There's a Wookiee yelling and having like little clay fur vibrate underneath his chin. Like it's pretty funny. And there's a lot of really cool looking stuff too. Like there apparently is a lot of really interesting things, lots of Jedi, that kind of stuff. So I'm looking forward to actually checking that out on Disney Plus. Star Wars Young Jedi Adventures on Disney Plus is also available. That is for really young kids. It looks like it's not quite Dora the Explorer, but it looks like Jimmy Neutron, but like in space. So it's meant for like school age kids, and I think it's going to kind of probably talk about like, Jedi morals and lessons of the day and stuff like that. But that's fine. I mean, it's Disney. You knew they were going to do it. They bought Star Wars for a lot of money and they intend to make that money back. And I feel like you're going to see stuff like this. But I mean, that's fine because like what happens is like you get these younger kids interested in something that's appropriate for them. Because I mean, some kid that's 5, Darth Vader would be scary. That's not a movie that you necessarily watch when you're 5, maybe when you're 10. But in the meantime, you can watch Young Jedi Adventures on Disney Plus. Last but not least, Carrie Fisher received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame on May 4th. It was accepted by Billie Lourd, Fisher's daughter, with Mark Hamill alongside at the ceremony, saying that it was about time, and well-deserved is what was the quote from Mark Hamill. So that's really cool. And cool that Billie Lourd is involved in Star Wars and is able to accept it. Obviously, Carrie Fisher passed away several years ago now. But cool that the star is on the Walk of Fame now. Moving on into what we actually have been watching instead of hopefully waiting to watch, I will keep this spoiler-free. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. I went to go see that with Alastair last Thursday. I really didn't like it. We were talking about this on Pass or Play with Brockett, and I think that at that time I may have already accepted the invitation to go see it. So when Brockett said, "Are you going to pass or are you going to play?" I said, "Play," because I've already agreed to go.
Right.
Normally, I wouldn't have high hopes for Guardians of the Galaxy. I wasn't a big fan of the second one. I think I liked the first one, but I liked it for what it was. I thought it was really different. And at the time, I knew nothing about the characters. And we've seen them obviously throughout, Volume 2 and then other snippets within the Marvel crossovers and stuff. There was a couple things about the movie that I really, really didn't like. And I will leave all the plot stuff away from it because the movie only just came out like a couple days ago. But I think that the thing that bugged me the most was the exchanges between the characters. For the most part, they're screaming at one another. Doesn't matter whether it's good guys versus bad guys, good guys talking to good guys, bad guys talking to bad guys, even just people on the street. There is just an awful lot of screaming. It was just loud. And that leads me into the real meat of the experience, which was on top of the film not being something I enjoyed. The theater experience was absolutely awful. And Alastair actually recorded on his Apple Watch that the decibels in the theater hit 95, which is potentially damaging depending on the level and length of exposure. We felt really uncomfortable. I don't know why we didn't leave. I think it's just the polite Canadian in us, even though he's from the UK. But like, I could hear him laughing at the film, so I knew he was enjoying it. I didn't want to ruin his night. He invited me, like I was the guest, to go.
Right.
He had like opening night tickets kind of thing. So I didn't want to be like, dude, my head hurts. Can we go? Like that just feels like a crappy thing to do as a friend. But the entire car ride home, we didn't talk about the movie. We talked about how loud and uncomfortable and sore we were from seeing the film. And I'm not someone that went to a lot of rock concerts. Like I don't have any hearing loss that I'm aware of, but I've noticed that even just now, I'm only not having like sore ears. The rest of the weekend when I was streaming, having earbuds in was uncomfortable. And I really will throw the book at the IMAX theater at Bears Lake at Cineplex in Halifax to say, that is broken. Like that is not right. I would be livid if I had brought a kid. Like if I brought my 13-year-old or, like I don't have any kids, but like if I brought a young person who hears at different frequencies than me as a special thing, father and son to go see, Guardians of the Galaxy, and it was that loud, like the kid would be in pain. I would be furious. We were pretty mad as it was. And so that unfortunately tainted the experience even farther, but I was not a fan. And the one thing that I remember saying afterwards, I might have even been to you at the gym, was that if James Gunn is the one that is in charge of DC now, and he has been quoted as saying that the Flash movie that's coming out in June is the best superhero film he has ever seen, and knowing that he made Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, his opinion is not worth shit to me. So that is something I will not be seeing as Flash version whatever in the DC Cineverse coming out in June. So yeah, it was not for me. I would love for someone to change my mind because I don't like seeing these films that are obviously in a universe I like with characters that should be really cool. And I'd love for somebody to change my mind. I'm not saying the movie had no good parts. There were good parts. It was visually stunning. In the spots that were clear, it was also a 3D movie, which is not my favorite, but I didn't know that going in. There are moments where you're like, okay, that was flippin' awesome, but they don't happen that often. And the rest of it seems to be pretty heavy with filler. So I'm curious to see someone that is maybe a Guardians of the Galaxy comic fan, has more info on the characters, like something that they can bring to the table beyond the MCU that might help me like the film better. But it's just one of those things that it just didn't land very well for me.
Planning on seeing it in the next couple of weeks, so I'm curious now to see how. It's one of those things where I know that I want to see it in the theater, regardless of how what people have said about it. But going in with, I guess, lower expectations, I might actually be better off than you and Alastair were going
Probably,
into it,
yeah.
because I don't necessarily have high hopes, and so then there's a good chance that I'll be pleasantly surprised by elements of it.
So don't go see it in IMAX. Go to
Yeah.
Dartmouth Crossing, a smaller theater, or which is a
Yeah.
regular size theater. Because I saw Top Gun at Dartmouth Crossing, which is the same franchise. It's a Cineplex, but Top Gun was loud, but you could feel it in your chest. It didn't vibrate your brain, like there was, and it was balanced. Like when the characters were talking in Top Gun, you could hear them over the plane. Like this, the movie was, and the presentation, the technical presentation in the theater was balanced.
I'm a little bit on the, I don't know if you would say cheap side, but I've already paid for my movie tickets with that pass. So it only includes like the
Oh,
basic
right. Yeah,
movie
yeah,
theater
yeah.
experience. And so I'll do that. And then I'll just get probably some popcorn while I'm there. So it'll be hopefully quieter than the IMAX experience.
I
But
hope so for your sake.
yeah, I saw 2 movies in the theater since you and I last spoke. It's Dungeons and Dragons and the Super Mario Bros. Movie. So
Oh, you've seen Super Mario.
yeah,
I think you had only planned on seeing that the last time.
yeah. I enjoy them both. I think I told you already. Like the Dungeons and Dragons movie I was hoping for something a little bit more adventure-y. It had more comedic bits in it than I was, I guess, expecting, but it was still a lot of fun. So I'm also talking about this in a spoiler-free way, but it was it was very good. The special effects were very cool. A good mix of practical effects and CGI. So some of the characters I thought were interesting looking, and then the way they move was less smooth than I guess expected, but still good. And I found out afterwards, my older son was telling me that there were people in costume for chunks of it as well. So it was quite good. The Super Mario movie, I'd recommend it. If you're a fan of the movie, the Mario franchise of games, I'd say go see it. It was a lot of fun. I caught myself at one point going, but this is just like the video game coming to life. What's so big about? You know what, Steven? Shut up. This is like exactly why you would go and see it. So it had a lot of good, nice little Easter eggs in it. The voice acting was quite good throughout. I was pleasantly surprised by Chris Pratt, just because the way he spoke in the trailer sounded like he was just dialing it in, just like here we go. But it didn't sound like he was flat energy wise throughout the movie at all. So it was quite good. And Jack Black, of course, killed it just as Bowser. Is quite good.
I heard that Jack Black was hard to pull out as Bowser. Like if you knew going in, you could pick it up, but like it wasn't like typical Jack Black. Like when you think about Jack Black coming into a role, for example, we talked about it in The Mandalorian season 3. Like it's just Jack Black in a different costume. Yeah. Like he's not really doing anything special for Star Wars. He's just kind of being Jack Black. But apparently it was better than that in the Mario Brothers movie.
Yeah, there's like a song sequence in it. Not that I won't say anything else about it. And then when he sings, you can hear the Jack Black in the singing, and it sounds corny, and it is corny in the movie, but you kind of laugh, roll your eyes at it, and go, yeah, it kind of fits. So it's good, but it's that's kind of the only part that felt very Jack Black. But I feel like he really nailed the role, did a solid job.
I wouldn't mind talking about that one in depth, and it would be fun maybe to have the three of us get together, where you, me, and Ryan Murphy, because Ryan Murphy's family is big into Mario, and he's a big fan and all that kind of stuff. His kids are really into it. And I think he was planning on going to see the film, so if he's seen it, then maybe the three of us can get together and chat about it.
Sure. I mean, it's to talk about it after it's been in the theater for a little while too, so we can actually talk about the storyline as opposed to going, it's fun, good voice acting. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Speaking of things we have seen, and we can talk about spoilers because it's been out for a couple of weeks now, is The Mandalorian Season 3, Chapter 23 and 24. Most of what I have to say is going to be about Chapter 24, The Return. These were the finale season bits of Season 3. I kind of wish they would just call them episodes, Season 3, Episode 7 and 8. It would be a lot easier to track, I think, but
agreed.
The way that they're listed on IMDb is by chapter. Anyway, I watched these the moment that they came out, and I was surprised that they weren't just one big finale. It did really feel like one show, but I'm curious because it's been a little while since we've talked about Mandalorian on the show. What did you think of both? Like, I guess we could just talk about it like one story, 23 and 24. What did you think of the season finale of Season 3?
I guess the first thing I'll say is overall, I really enjoyed the 2 episodes. I thought it was a really good I think they could have, as basically what you're saying, they could have made this a 2-hour final episode, and it would have been fantastic, like almost like a movie. It would have been fantastic because there was a cliffhanger at the end of chapter 23, which went right into chapter 4, and the action just kept going right through. So it was good. As we've said before on the podcast, it's easy. Like I'm gonna probably be like nitpicky about things. Probably it may seem like I don't like it, but I really did enjoy these 2 episodes, and so the things that I may be a little bit whiny or complaining about is just because it's like, as we've said, you want it. It's so good, and you want it to be just perfect. It was solid. There was so much action that was really well done. I'm just going to be like listing off a bunch of stuff that I liked about it. Anybody feel free to jump in, but there was there's a lot of Mandalorians flying around with their backpacks this time. So in mid-flight fight sequences as well, which I think they did it really well. You talked before about the special effects in the Star Wars being top notch, like especially the atmospheric stuff and cinematography. There's one scene in the beginning, I think, of the second last episode. Right. It's when the 2 groups of Mandalorians were coming together on. Oh, I keep forgetting the planet name. Wasn't Navarro, was it?
Yeah, Navarro is where they all kind of grouped up.
Right. And then so there's one point where the large ships come into the atmosphere. They're flying over the main city, and it's just slow and takes its time. And everyone outside is looking up at it. And they did it so well where you can tell that there's a lot of work and detail that went into rendering the ship, but they also they muted the colors some and then it blurred little parts of it. So it looked like it was up in the sky flying by, like instead of episodes 1 through 3 that George Lucas did, and everything CGI was like the highest resolution crispness possible, where it didn't look like things were on realistic planes. I really felt like when these massive ships came flying in, they did a really good job. Although the big ship, thought it was funny. They had a giant emblem, Mandalorian emblem on the bottom of the massive Imperial fighter ship, and like that would have been quite the task to paint that. Like if you think about the actual size of that ship, and then the logo that they painted on the bottom of that would have been so much paint and so much time to do. I can't leave the graphic designer out of me. I'm like, how would they have actually applied that? But
jetpacks.
No, there you go. All right, and then just like everyone's zipping around with paint rollers. Now I can just getting off topic, but that's funny. No, it's good, and then it's not without its things that always make me kind of laugh and roll my eyes. It's just the the second last episode starts off with Moff Gideon walking into his communication room along a corridor with laser beam doors, with guards standing on railingless platforms where if they fall off the side, they're going to fall down. There's like almost every single Star Wars movie or show you watch, somebody is walking along something that they could, 2 steps. If somebody got dizzy suddenly, they're dead. There's no way around it. It makes me laugh.
I think the reason they do it is because villains just like to have an opportunity, if they want to just push someone off. I feel like that's the whole idea, is just they just want if they need to off somebody, then they don't have to necessarily overpower them. They just have to give them a good shove and they're done. That was one of my favorite kind of like, I guess it's like a Star Wars meme, but it's kind of a callback to the Phantom Menace, where there's a bunch of force fields in a row in the Darth Maul duel at the end of that film. Right. Obi-Wan has to wait for the shields to go down before he can fight them. Like there's all these different things. The Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon Jinn get separated because the shields close before Obi-Wan can join Qui-Gon in the fight. So stuff like that was interesting, and I liked the way that they handled that in this, and it also helped thematically, just with the Praetorian Guards and the Dark Trooper Phase 2 and like the red and the black, the armor that Gideon was wearing, like all that kind of stuff. It just kind of helped amp it up. It felt a little like Bond villain, layer. But like whatever, you're on Mandalore and you got a secret Imperial base. Like, I mean, you're going to use all the resources that are there because there's no one there to stop you. Oh my goodness, yeah. You got free reign, right? For me, with the jet pack stuff, I really enjoyed the action that they did with Bo-Katan leading the Mandalorians with the Darksaber and the armorer with her forge hammers. There was
Oh
a
yeah.
weird, I think it's because of the armorer, but there was a weird How to Train Your Dragon vibe where like you've got
Yeah.
Bo-Katan flying in with a laser sword, you've got Mandalorians using blasters and rockets and jetpacks, and there's the armorer with a jetpack basically smacking people in the face with
Yep.
hammers. Like it's
Good
just
call.
yeah, like she's using hand-to-hand combat stuff with jetpacks.
How to Train Your Dragon. That good reference. You're bang on there.
That or you need like Flight of the Valkyries or like one of the classic tracks from like Apocalypse Now, playing in the
Yeah.
background as you're descending.
It goes to show you just how useful those weapons can be. That like just a hammer can be. Like everyone's got Beskar armor on at that point. Like they're flying in
Yeah.
against Imperial. I'm not sure if they're Imperial troopers or what they were called. I forget, but they had Beskar armor as well, and they're just all shooting at each other, and it's just bouncing off the armor. So then when you're actually able to swing a hammer that's got massive swing behind it, and you're like clank and thud, and people are getting. It makes sense that you get knocked out and completely thrown off, where these these guns are just doing nothing at that point.
And if you get knocked out and you're flying high above the ground with your jetpack as a stormtrooper, then like if you fall and you can't, if you're not conscious to turn the jetpack back on, like you're done. Like just it's interesting. And not to mention like I mean she's swinging the hammer. I'm sure she's very capable, but she's also got a jetpack at her back. So like you're being hit with the force of the jetpack attached to a hammer. As long as she doesn't let go of the hammer, ow. So I thought that was that they handled that really, really well. I also feel like those scenes were very fast paced in terms of like you'd see two people go up against one another, and then one of them would die like immediately. It wasn't like this long duel between different characters, and there wasn't necessarily people just shooting and getting away. It was like pew pew pew, someone dies, and then they move on to the next person. And I really liked how Din Djarin did this a lot, because at this point in the chapter 23 it ended with Din being captured, and this is one of the things I didn't like about this go between the two episodes, is that it was useless. It's a cliffhanger because 3 minutes into the next episode he's freed again, right? Like I really found that was dumb. And really felt like, here's where we insert the commercial break and you all have to wait a week. Like just that, it felt like terrestrial old TV when they didn't need to do that at all. But it
was basically a mechanism to end the episode, probably.
Yeah, basically. But I liked when he did get freed by Grogu in IG-12, which was again hilarious. I really enjoyed the accuracy that Din Djarin, when he was going hand to hand with anybody, he wasn't shooting them in the armor. He was putting the blaster. Putting the blaster muzzle either under their chin, under their chest plate, or like point blank at their throat when they're on the ground. Like it was execution style. It was like John Wick in Mando armor. It was awesome.
And there was a couple of cool moments that I really liked as well, where he might shoot and then go ching ping ping off the armor, and then he'd aim down and like get the crease in between the foot.
Yeah.
Like basically where the ankle bone is. So he just drop them down to the ground by doing that. And I love little tiny things like that, because it goes to show that as a fighter, they're just hyper aware of all of the weak points on somebody. And I just think that's just next level fighting. That's cool.
And it was never like a one shot. Like if he puts the pistol underneath your chin, he pulls the trigger 3 times. Like it's not, it's like, you're dead, you're dead, you're dead. Like it just feels so aggressive. And which is funny because like when he speaks, he's so mellow all the time.
But that fight scene at the end, though, they were messing with his kid at that point. He's just like, all right.
Oh yes. Yeah.
It's go time.
Yeah. That was good when they get separated and Grogu takes the, have we talked about the IG-12 thing? Did you and I talk about that on this show? I don't think we got that far.
No, actually that's right, because
I don't remember what episode that was in.
He got it at the beginning of episode or chapter 23.
That's right. Okay.
Yeah. So like they flew in and all landed, and then when they went back to the I can't remember his title, so basically the mayor of the area.
Grief Karga. Yeah. Magistrate. Yeah. High magistrate.
He basically brought IG-12 in to show Din Djarin, and he's like, no, this is not good. And then That was actually fun, kind of a fun comedic moment when Grogu gets in there and just hits the no button and then just keeps going yes, yes, yes over again. Because as a parent, I laugh at that because that is such a toddler move.
I really I lost my mind at that scene. I watched it twice. I was laughing so hard I couldn't hear what Din and Karga were saying. I was just laughing at Grogu. I didn't really like the yes in the alleyway, like where he was just pounding the yes button repeatedly, because that to me got old. It was funny the first couple times, but and I know what you're saying about like the toddler move, but Grogu's 50. Like he's old
Yeah, but
enough
he
to
can't
communicate.
talk yet,
Yeah, but he's
so
old enough to communicate. He's old enough to understand all these different things. So he's more than a toddler. Like he has he has more he has the mobility of a toddler, but he has more mental capacity for sure. Because
yeah,
there's points. There was a point later when Mandalorians were fighting on board a ship, and Grogu got between them, and he used the button to say no, like don't fight amongst yourselves. This is the
Mhm.
reason why we have problems already. And so he understands those concepts, which I think is kind of higher than just toddler stuff. But yeah, the it solved two problems. Like, well, one, it really um, gave some comedic relief and some interesting kind of range for Grogu to be able to more than respond to his name
Mhm.
or pantomime. Like he actually can use a word
He,
and communicate
he
in
now
that
has two
way.
words.
He's binary now, right?
Yeah,
Which
exactly.
is funny because again, droids. But with the mobility, right? He can now walk with Din. He can be in the same shot with Din. He doesn't have to hover at Din's waist, right? Like everything's is
Yeah.
better. He can have a little bit more mobility. He's still pretty passive, like that. He doesn't have a weapon or anything like that. And I think that unfortunately, IG-12 got destroyed. I'm not sure what's going to happen in the future with Grogu because with IG-12 being dismantled. But I really like the mobility that it gave him, and right up until he went up against the Praetorian guards, it was really really cool to see him use the droid very efficiently in just a short amount of time. That went from stumbling around Karga's office to the next thing they know they're on Mandalore, a day later, and he's walking no problem. Like he's not fumbling
Hmm.
around, he's ducking behind walls, he's kind of moving out of the way of the guards. And but as you said, that led to a fight between Grogu and the Praetorian Guards, which dismantled Paz Vizsla at the end of chapter 23.
I don't say it was tough to watch, like
Oh, it was.
emotionally. I
Yeah,
wasn't like so sad, but it was upsetting. I really liked him as a character,
me
so
too. Yeah.
I thought he was going to pull through.
They did a lot of work from Boba Fett to make a good pact between Din and Paz. And
Hmm.
then to have Paz die in chapter 23, it really had some weight. And I think that that's bad because I liked Paz, but good because it means that Star Wars isn't afraid to freaking kill people that the
Yeah,
audience
yeah.
likes. It means that when there's danger, there's potential peril for one of your favorite characters. You don't know, because we're not dealing with characters that we know are in future films or future stories, right? And so
Hmm.
that part is cool. But yeah, it was that was a fun fight scene too. Like I really enjoyed the way that the Mandalorians moved through the caverns and would like cover the corners and basically use the jetpacks to like dismantle people and like not just use it to fly, but use it to like knock people down or close distance with a jetpack. 2 feet. Just to get that much
Yeah.
closer. That kind of stuff was cool.
And I do like how they use the grappling people, the grappling hook or the grappling cables or whatever you want to call them to
Oh
actually
yeah,
like trip people and grab them and pull them in. It's just it's again, it just feels like being extra aware of your weapons and your abilities. It's really well done.
it's like Star Wars meets Batman. Like they have all these gadgets,
Yeah.
and they use them to their advantage. The flamethrowers and stuff, like all kinds of things. The Praetorian Guards were really interesting too because that ties it all into the Last Jedi.
Hmm.
So those were the guards that were at Snoke's side, and Rey and Kylo Ren had to fight the Praetorian Guards in the throne room, Snoke's throne room.
Yeah.
And those were formidable. So like when you know that they killed Paz Vizsla and you know who they are and what they're capable of, then you see them going up against Grogu and you're like, oh my god. I mean, like
Yeah.
the show is so popular that they're not going to kill Grogu, so you're not like super worried, but you're also kind of like, how is Grogu going to handle this? And of course, he's going to run and jump because that's what they really like the whole force jump this season. That's kind of Grogu's new thing. And I don't know if you've seen it. I'm glad I didn't see it before the episode, but I saw it about a week after. Have you seen the weird little music video about seagulls and Luke and Yoda? Have you seen that?
No.
Okay.
Should I
It's a bad lip sync video.
turn away from it?
No,
Oh
it's
no.
not. It's
Is
hilarious.
it worth watching or just?
It is
Oh,
one
hilarious.
of the
Okay.
funniest things you're going to see on the internet. Anyway,
Okay.
basically, it's the exchange that Luke and Yoda have in the hut on Dagobah in Empire Strikes Back. And instead of what they're saying, somebody's inserting a song, but they had to write the song to match the bad lip reading of what they were saying, right? So the words coming out can't be what they actually say, but it has to also match the lips. So I can't remember all the lyrics right now, but it's something about seagulls, bash them with a coconut. They're gonna get my dinner, but they did. Like there's all these different repetitive things. But anyway, when they get to the training
Right.
sequences where Yoda is on Luke's back, then the bridge to the song is like run, 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 jump. Like this kind of like boppy little song. And somebody cut that track to Grogu running along the ceiling lights and jumping. And it fits perfectly because it takes him about 3 beats to run the length of the ceiling light and then he jumps between them. And so it works out absolutely perfect. And I
Nice.
hollered when I saw it on TikTok or wherever I saw it, maybe YouTube. But man, it was really good. It is an earworm. You'll be singing it for a week. I'm sorry, not
Oh,
sorry,
man.
because we've all had to do it. We've all had to do it.
I've got it open in a tab in my browser now. So as soon as we're done recording, I'm going to take that in.
It's really bizarre.
Just back to that fight sequence.
Oh,
Though,
yes.
One thing I wanted to mention is that when Grogu and Din Djarin were in there together, when they're fighting the guards there, it's the combination of Din Djarin's fighting with Grogu's force push. It just
Mhm.
made for a very visually impressive scene. I just thought it was good, and it allowed Grogu to be in there because there were times when Din Djarin was in a spot where he was taking care of someone, and then one of the other guys are coming in from behind, and then it looks like I kept forgetting that Grogu was there able to do the push, so somebody would be coming down with a swing, and then would just get kind of just tossed across the room. It was a good combo. It was neat to see the two of them actually fight together against the bad guys. It worked quite well.
And what was so crazy about it and cool is that Grogu was doing all the disarming. So he wasn't pushing anybody off
Mhm.
ledges. Like he wasn't crushing anybody. He wasn't knocking anybody out. It was like, I'm going to kind of like Tai Chi my way out of this. Like I'm going to push you out at your legs so you fall over so you can't get me. Oh, there's a guy about to get Din, but he's about to grab the sword that he dropped. So I'm going to push the sword over the edge. And then the guy's got no weapon. And so then Din takes him out. And like, it was a really cool choreography of like Grogu kind of like dismantling all this kind of stuff. And that was really like, it kind of foreshadowed the fight between Bo-Katan and Din Djarin and Grogu at the end, which I thought was really cool because if you watch closely, when Din rushes in to save Grogu, he does like this slide and like blaster fire and stuff. I think he did it then. He did it then, or he did it when he was fighting the guards behind the force fields, which was another really cool scene. But anyway, Grogu was with him at both occasions. And so when Grogu rushes into the fight with Din and Bo-Katan and Moff Gideon, he does a knee slide. It's subtle, but he basically
Grogu does.
Yeah, Grogu does. Watch it again. Yeah, he does.
Okay.
He does a knee slide at the end, right when he pushes. He does a force push on Gideon. I don't know whether he actually pushes Gideon or whether he pushes Gideon's axe off the ledge, but he does something that's force related. And I was just like, okay, Grogu's doing the knee slide now. Like that's
learn from dad.
Learn from dad. Yeah, no, it's pretty solid. It's a pretty solid skill pickup. I like the ending too, where the title of chapter 3 was really misleading because it was called The Spies. And so you kept on waiting for like that television double cross, like one of the Mandalorians to be the spy that they're talking about, when really they were just talking about the character that's on Coruscant. the lady that was a former
Oh, right.
Imperial. So she's really still an Imperial. She's a double agent, which I was not surprised at because she's just evil. Moff Gideon's right hand sort of thing.
Right.
And so that's what the title was referring to, I think. But I kept on thinking it was going to be...
Axe, the guy who flew back up to the ship.
Yeah, the guy that flew up to the ship and was piloting the Imperial ship and ended up crashing it into Mandalore.
Yeah, I have a problem with that. Physics-wise, it feels like something coming from that high up in the atmosphere crashing into the ground would make much more potentially catastrophic level implosion on the ground. Like to just crash into the ground and then have Din Djarin, Bo-Katan, and Grogu be able to just stay on the platform. Nothing happens to the platform. I actually really enjoyed the Grogu using the shield or the force to create a shield to protect them from the fire, but something that huge coming like it was straight down. It wasn't even like it's trying to stay above the ground. It was literally pitched straight at the ground. You could see it all like just looked like it was meters away, crashing through the ground, and they survived. And I hate that it bugs me because there's so much stuff that was cool in this episode, and the fact that they did that, and it's just, I don't know.
See, for me, I just thought, I mean, like they're in a Mandalorian cave that's full of Beskar everywhere. Like I would imagine that the facility was pretty sturdy. I also thought it was a lot farther away. I thought it was a pretty big facility. I didn't think it crashed like on top of Bo-Katan. I thought it went down the natural cave that was there.
It did, but then just the sheer force from something that huge impacting the ground would have a shockwave that like there was no kind of no shockwave or whatever. There was just like this burst of fire that came through, but there was just I feel like there'd just be this massive air displacement from something that large creating that big of an impact. But
I didn't pick up on that, but I'd have to watch it again to see how. I mean, it was big, but I'd have to remember where it was in relation to everyone. The thing that I was getting from it was kind of a nice nod to the Super Star Destroyer crashing into the Death Star in Return of the Jedi. Kind of comes straight down.
Oh, yeah.
Has the same noise. It makes the same like kind of whine noise as it gets closer to impact. So that was really cool. But I liked at first I thought that Axe might be like sacrificing himself, but then I realized no jetpack. Like he just blows a hole in the side of the windshield and just like jumps out last minute, which I thought was pretty good. But yeah, there was a lot of really cool, I guess, wrap up moments in the series too. Like you've got Din going back to Navarro. I guess I'm getting ahead of myself. Din and Grogu actually go to the Republic. I guess it's a New Republic fighter pilot bar where he talks to Carson Teva, played by Paul Sun-Kung Lee, and the guy that was like basically like an X-Wing cop for most of the series.
Right. Yeah.
So he talks to him at the bar and he's like, so I hear you might need some help hunting down Imperial remnants. I'm a bounty hunter. I'm free reign now. I no longer am helping the Mandalorians retake Mandalore. He doesn't say all this, but it's essentially what he gets at.
Yeah.
But he's basically saying like, I don't want to work for scum anymore. I want a decent paycheck. I want something straightforward. And I now have beef with these Imperials because they were after my kid. And so I want you to hire me to help you because you're understaffed.
Right.
And that's basically what Teva is come to understand. But the whole time they're in that bar, there's all these little Easter eggs. Like across the top of the bar, there's all these helmets from different stormtroopers over the years. There's an IG-11 head, which they take back to Navarro. Grogu immediately gets on the bar and starts eating snacks and is pointing to the droid heads. And then in the background, Trapper Wolf, played by Dave Filoni, who directed the episode, is there like jabbing away with somebody in the background.
Huh.
It's the same place that we saw Zeb, the big purple guy from Rebels, a couple of episodes ago.
I have to go back and watch the end of that episode. It feels like there's a couple things that I just...
Oh, it's really good. Yeah, it's a really nice nod to the characters. And I think it's good because we might see more Carson Teva in Mando's future, which I think would be great. Almost like a quest giver. Like, I've got a new bounty for you. And then Din and Grogu go off and do whatever they're going to do. And then at the end, they also have like, it's almost like a baptism, I guess, where they try to get Grogu to become a foundling, but he can't speak, so he can't take the creed. And they're doing this all in the mines of Mandalore. And instead, there's like some weird loophole where we can't find his parents. We don't even know where his parents are. They could not be alive. So I'm going to adopt him. And so as my son, he becomes my ward or something. And so that kind of, I guess, grandfathers him into the foundling program. Like it was a weird kind of thing. Basically, if I take him on as my son, then I then become his guardian and I can speak for him as the guardian. It's kind of a bit of a loophole. But what I thought was really interesting about that particular exchange is that he becomes Din Grogu.
Oh, right.
I thought Din was Din's first name, but it might be that Djarin might be his first name. Din might be the name of whoever his adoptive parent was, because Din was also adopted and brought into the Mandalorian culture, right? So I thought that was a really interesting thing that I didn't realize about the series, because like Bo-Katan Kryze, I'm assuming her first name is Bo-Katan, but I don't know. But then again, she's not adopted. She's like part of a family tree, for a house of Mandalore. So it might be different for the children's of the Watch and the way that they do things, but I thought it was interesting. And then after that, he had the cool stuff where he goes back to Navarro. He brings back IG-11. IG-11 is now the Navarro sheriff because it's a assassin droid essentially. But then we've got the cool little like Western homestead ending to everything. And I don't think it's the end of the series. I think it's just the end of these chapters. So the homestead on Navarro was very like Clint Eastwood lone gunman sort of stuff. And so the show ends with Mando on the porch, while Grogu is levitating a frog over a pond on Navarro, which I thought was really cool.
Poor frog's about to be a snack.
But there's a fun little Easter egg where they do a circle wipe. They come in on Grogu for a minute and then they close the circle and it fades to black. And the only time Star Wars does that is at the end of Revenge of the Sith, the end of the Return of the Jedi, and the end of Rise of Skywalker. So these chapter markers, like the end of an arc. And so this is the end of season 3 of The Mandalorian, and they did the little circle wipe. Thought that was a really cool thing. Like just little things that you pick up on when you've seen these things 100 times.
So do you think that means season 4 is going to be almost intentionally set up to lead into the movie that they're doing?
I think that season 4 is probably going to be, well, one, they're setting it up to be more Lone Star adventures with Mando and Grogu, right? Like that's kind of what they're setting it up to be. So there may be some cameos from Bo-Katan. There may be some cameos or there might be more involved from Carson Teva, but it's not, they don't need to figure out who is hunting Grogu and why the Imperials want him, because Moff Gideon is done.
Yeah.
So that part is finished. We can move on, which is good because it takes Mando back to square one, sort of, where we really liked season 1. It's very Western. It's very like, you open up the Western saloon doors and in walks the lone Mandalorian. So it has more of a vibe like that. But then if he's bouncing around the galaxy doing all these things, hunting down Imperial remnants, well, you know who else is hunting down Imperial remnants? Ahsoka, right? So I feel like there's probably going to be a cameo in Ahsoka. There's probably going to be Ahsoka cameo happening in season 3 of Mando, season 4 of Mando. I know they're all going towards that movie. I don't know how far that movie is away. Is it 3 more seasons? Is it 2 more seasons? Who knows? But I like that they're kind of pointing that way, and they have the layers that they could really still do their own thing in the series, but have things kind of push towards a film. And I think that could be very, very cool. Moving on into the Internet Minute, which is, of course, brought to you by you. The Citadel Cafe is 100% listener supported. If you're getting value out of the show, please consider putting a little bit of value back in. You can become a member at patreon.com/the Citadel Cafe. Joining at any level will get you an invite to the member-only Discord server, which is shared with my personal Discord, and access to Barista Cut bonus audio sessions when we have time to record them. Special thanks to our Bean Counter patrons, Cosmic and Smurf588. Thanks very much for your support on this episode. Patron count is at 27, and that is steady on from the last time that we recorded. Our goal each time we sit down is to have at least one more patron than the previous episode. If you would like to be patron number 28, visit patreon.com/thecitadelcafe. I'm going to keep this really short. I mentioned the LEGO Star Wars X-Wing Ultimate Collector Series on the last episode. It arrives tomorrow.
Ooh.
And I'm glad I didn't wait to pull the trigger because I had VIP access on May 1st. I was having a little bit of purchase hesitation. I talked to my dear friend Britt, and she basically said, tough love. If you don't buy it for yourself by 5 p.m. today, I am buying it for you. I was just like, that is very sweet. Please don't do that. I will. You're right. Yeah. You know, basically, she's like, you never do anything for yourself. You've got some money for your birthday. Like, do the thing that you want. And so I did. And I'm glad I did because less than a week later, Chad sent me a text and it is currently out of stock.
Wow.
I'm glad I didn't hesitate. I hesitated with the DeLorean, the time machine from Back to the Future, right. And I waited months, 6 months, 10 months. It was a long time before it was back in stock to pick up. So that is on its way to me. I will give a big shout out and thank you to anybody that was donating bits or making donations on my birthday stream on last weekend, because I was able to use that money or some of that money to put towards the X-Wing. And generally a big shout out and thank you to all of the people that supported by sending in Lego sets. There was a Lego stream just before my birthday. And this is why I had the purchase hesitation, is because I already had about 5 new Lego sets to put together because people were so generous and so lovely on my birthday. So for me to buy one of my own, having 4 or 5 unopened sets sitting here, I thought, I don't need another one, right? Like I don't need another one. But I think the justification came from Britt when she said, you would get it eventually.
It's true.
Like buying it now and building it later, or buying it later and building it later are the same thing. Like just buy it now, you know you have it. And it's not like you're putting on a visa or going into debt to get it. Like you're not making a poor financial decision just to get this thing. So right. I have Ecto 1 from Ghostbusters. I have the motorized lighthouse. I have the TIE Fighter, another Star Wars themed build. Mm-hmm. I just finished actually Grogu and the Mandalorian, the Brickheads versions, the little mini dudes. That was really fun actually. And what was the other set that I have? Leia's helmet from Return of the Jedi, the helmet that she wears in Jabba's palace. I think it's called Bosch is the name of the character. She's impersonating a bounty hunter. Anyway, right. Yeah. So I've got that as like a little helmet to put together, which is very cool. So again, super thank you to everybody. I really appreciate it. It's going to be a lot of fun. And I won't be talking about the kind of like, I guess, the sets too much on this show, because a lot of the times the Lego, I guess, Internet Minute happens to be about future sets and things that are coming. There were a couple of Star Wars sets that were released for May 4th, Star Wars Day. But the one that interests me the most was the X-Wing Ultimate Collector Series. I know Chad picked up the Mandalorian Fighter and TIE Interceptor because the TIE Interceptor was his favorite ship. The TIE Interceptor has always been one of his favorites. And he couldn't get it on its own. He had to get it in the set with the Mando Snub Fighter, I think is what they're called. I can't remember what the Mandalorian starfighters are called. They have a name. So he got that. So I might ask him about that, or maybe get him to send a picture in or something like that. That'd be fun. Anyway, that's my pick this week. And that wraps up this episode of the Citadel Cafe. You can get more information about the show and links to some of the things that we talked about at thecitadelcafe.com. Music for the show was composed by Kevin MacLeod. You can email the show at thecitadelcafe@gmail.com or find the show by name on Twitter. Subscribe for free on iTunes, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube, or your favorite podcast app. You can find the show just about anywhere. And hey, while you're out there, leave a rating or a review on your favorite episode, or maybe even a comment on YouTube. It's all free and it helps the show find new listeners. My name is Joel Duggan. You can find everything I am doing online at joelduggan.com. Listen to my other podcast about Minecraft at thespawnchunks.com. And follow me on social media at Joel Duggan, as well as on Twitch, where I stream every day but Monday. I am currently working on Minecraft on Tuesday, Thursdays, and the weekends, Satisfactory on Wednesdays, and Lego on Fridays. So you get to see these new sets being built live on Twitch. Stephen, where can people find you online?
For the most part, people can find me on Twitch at twitch.tv/StephenESC, and Stephen with a PH, and that's where I'm hanging out mostly.
You've been listening to the Citadel Cafe, where we are fast, easy, and cheap, but you can only pick two.